Welcome to the channel. My name's CV Sahara. This is my Jeep TJ, and I'm going to show you how to put these lights onto a Jeep TJ. I've never been a huge fan of windshield lights, but I started looking for LEDs. I have a stubby bumper, so I don't really have a place up here for them. I did want some auxiliary LED lights, so that's going to be the best solution, and I'll show you how to properly put, how I put those lights on. So guys, installation of this piece is fairly straightforward. Simply goes right there and it mounts just like you would anticipate. Got a hole for each bolt on this bracket. Now this bracket came to me a little bit bent. I got it on a scratch and dent cell, so hopefully everything fits fine. Pretty sure it will. The problem most people will have when doing this will be getting these Torx bits out. This is a T40, and I'll tell you a few tips and tricks. Number one, if you need to, you can try to get some PV blaster or something down in the seams to get down in there. Heat is your friend. If you live up north, this Jeep's originally from up north, but it's been down here a long time. You don't want to strip this out because it's a pain in the butt with them being countersunk the way they are. One thing is get you a good T40. Do not get the safety security T40 that's got the little hole in the tip. And the name of the game is leverage and control. So I've already broken these loose, but I haven't broken this one loose yet. One thing I want to do is I want to make sure that T40 is in there nice all the way in. And with that paint that's in there, it can be a little bit difficult to get it all the way in. Yeah, that's what she said. But once you get it straight, one thing you want to do is make sure that as you're pulling up, in this case I need to pull up on this, or down if I pushed it the other way around. Of course, this door's in the way. Whatever I want to do, I want to make sure I brace the head from the other direction, because the reason these strip so often is that as you're pulling, they get wobbly and they pull out and wind up getting in there crooked like that, and then they don't make good contact. If you brace the head, keep it straight, and get a pull, you should hear a nice satisfying clunk like that, and then it'll come right out. When I said heat's your friend, you got to be careful because this is obviously a painted surface. You don't want to ruin anything, but you can use a small torch to heat these up. It'll expand the metal, and then as it cools down, the metal will contract and it could break loose any corrosion or rust. I've seen a guy get a wrench and put over it like this, and then blow the blowtorch into the wrench to kind of keep the heat from getting around, or the flame getting around on the paint itself. But now I'm going to take these 4 bolts out. The other side's in, so the windshield shouldn't go anywhere. I shouldn't really have to worry about that. These 3 bolts hold the hinge on. This bolt down here holds the glass from tipping forward. Now I bought the Smittybilt brand. They were cheap. They were on scratch and dent. Basically, it's a pretty standard light bracket. But Smittybilt sends these countersunk bolts. I don't like. They use an Allen instead of a Torx. I don't like Allen. I don't like Torx. But if I had to pick one, I would pick a Torx. You can see right there that that one isn't even centered in the bolt. And they're very easy to strip out. They're easier than the proper size Torx will last a lot better than an Allen will. An Allen's going to strip out on you. Even though they're longer and you are going to be adding that length of the bracket, you can reuse your original bolts, which is what I'm going to do. Some people will put a rubber coating on the backside so it doesn't scratch this in case they want to take them off. It's not that big of an issue if you get them on there nice and flat. This bracket is bent a little bit. Smart to get all of them started before you ever tighten this first one up. Just a reminder, you don't have to be Superman when you're tightening these up. So on both sides, on the front, I did have to use the longer bolt that was provided by Smittybilt, but on both sides I were able to put the original bolts back in the sides because they do countersink a little bit better and they do fit a little bit better. So that one is now in there. And this one is in here, and you can see a little bit better how these countersink in pretty well. They all need to be painted. Once I get them mounted, get everything where I can, I'll probably take the bolts back out and paint the heads on them because they're a little rough. And guys, that's how you put on Smittybilt light brackets. You know, I do like them, but I kind of wish I'd have got the ones that go on the bottom hinges. That does prevent you from laying the hood down, but I don't think I've ever laid my hood down. In fact, I took the stoppers off. So Who cares? But I like the lights being down and tight versus kind of up and out like that one is. Alright, so now that you know how to put the brackets on, let's talk about these lights. So these are some extremely cheap Amazon, eBay, whatever you want to call them, Chinese LEDs. Don't know how bright they are, but they were round. I wanted round. I got tired of the little square looking pods, and I really wanted some 5-inch lights, but they were hard to find, so at least affordably. So I went with these 7-inch ones. Again, I'm still on the fence on the look. I think they look alright. They're a little goofy, but if they're bright, I can deal with them. So they did just come with a simple 2-wire pigtail. These just 2-wire LEDs. So I have two options. Number one, I can buy or build a wiring kit for it, or I can do what I think I'm going to do now. I did buy a wiring kit for this. However, I bought the wrong one. I bought the, now these are from a Chinese company called Nilight. I bought the Nilight wiring harness, but I bought the wiring harness for a light bar, which does come with the option of lighting 2 light bars, so it would still work, except that the lead between the 2 lights, or between, in this case, 2 light bars you would have, is very short, so I would have to extend the wiring out. Here's that wiring harness I bought. Ignore the spaghetti. It's actually a pretty nice harness for the money. It's like $8 on warehouse deals, and you know it hooks to the battery. It's got an inline fuse. It's got your relay, and then it's got provisions for 2 different lights and a provision for a switch. And the switches you can unplug and plug in to work it through your firewall. So all in all, it's a very nice kit. But again, the provisions between the 2 leads going to the lights are made for a light bar, so they're kind of close together, and I would have to extend them out for my lights. So I got thinking, what can I do? I can either extend those out, or this did have stock fog lamps on it. These are LEDs, so they don't pull much amp. Stock wiring should be good up to about 55 watts, and I'm not sure the amperage, but I could do the math. 12 volts, 55 watts, halogen, you know, it's not that many amps. However, the stock wiring should be more than capable to push these LEDs from an amperage standpoint. The relay's already in place, the switch is already in place, and it's all factory. Here's my stock fog lamp pigtail, and of course it would come out under the fender and go to the bumper, but remember I pulled my parking lamps back in so that I could run them to the front right here. So that whole wiring harness got pulled back inside the hood area, and so I've got to test to make sure. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn them on with the switch, and then test this with a multimeter. I've got the switch turned on, and you can see I've got 12 volts on this plug, so it should work theoretically. And that's 12 volts on the colored wire there. The black wire is a ground. I'm going to cut that, and then I'm just going to run a wire up to the fog lamps. Tuck them in right here, up through here, probably underneath the cowl here, and then out right by that hinge, and they should work. Let's see. Alright guys, moment of truth. I've got them wired up to the stock fog lamp plugs. I've got some black piping there. I did have to use these shit inline plugs. Don't use those. They suck. Get something better. I would go inline though, so you can retain your stock stuff if you need it. They are extremely bright. So there you go, proof positive. You can hook up LEDs or other fog lights to your factory fog lamp plugs if you have them. Even if your Jeep didn't come with them, I would still look, because a lot of the Jeeps still have the wiring. All you have to do is find the wiring underneath the fender. There will be a plug behind your cigarette lighter area, and then of course there'll be a place for a fuse or a relay depending on your model. But once you get all that in place, all the wiring should be there. Again, the wiring should handle up to about 55 watt bulbs. LEDs, they're not going to pull enough amps and not push the wattage. That will be too much for factory wiring. I use some 16 gauge wire, but realistically the factory wiring is much less than that. One thing the factory wiring does that you may not like though is that it forces you, at least on the 99 model and the 97 model I had before, to turn on your parking lamps to utilize the fog lamp switch. So you have to have your parking lamps on to utilize the fog lamp switch. That may be different in later models, I don't know. It'd be something to check, because a lot of people like using just their fog lamps with no other lights. So guys, there you go, $30 for the lights. 19 bucks for these light brackets. So less than $50, run barely less than $50. I've got some nice lights. Let's take one more look at them. Those are extremely bright. When it gets dark here in a minute, I'll come back out, I'll turn them on, and we'll see how bright they are, and then we'll end the video. All right, so between the kids raising hell and the dogs barking, we'll try to get this done. So right now my parking lamps are on. That's a little bit of light on the garage there. And now let me turn the fog lamps on. And there's the fog lamps. So they are extremely bright. Let me turn. Yeah, that's just glare. You can't really tell. Let me get to the side, see if you can see. Not really, but that's just parking lamps and the fog lamp. They do still come on, the parking lamps, like I said. So you turn your lights off. And so guys, I don't know if you can see me, but thanks for watching. I hope this was educational. Those are Nightlight 7-inch LED fog lamps, and I like them. I'm still kind of growing used to the way they look on the Jeep, but from a usability standpoint, from a brightness standpoint, they're really good for 30 bucks. They do wire in perfectly to the stock wiring harness. So guys, stay tuned for another video coming soon about my Jeep Beach Jam prep, and thanks for watching. Have a great day.